Hi, guys. Are you ready for chapter 6 of our book? All right, so when we stopped with chapter 5, we had been reading about how the little green things had fallen out of the bag and they all were crawling down into the ground. And remember, James was trying to catch them and he couldn't get them. They just disappeared, right? And so he was feeling really sad and despondent. Despondent means like, I'll never have another good day again. I don't have any hope. Despondent, very sad. He picked up his chopper. He was about to start chopping again when he heard a shout behind him. And that's where we ended. So here we go. Chapter 6.
Sponge! Sponge! Come here at once and look at this!
At what?
It's a peach!
Aunt Spiker was shouting.
A what? A peach right up there on the highest branch. Can't you see it?
I think you must be mistaken, my dear Spiker. That miserable tree has never had any peaches on it.
There's one on it now, Sponge. You look for yourself.
You're teasing me, Spiker. You're making my mouth water on purpose when there's nothing to put into it. Why, that tree's never even had a blossom on it, let alone a peach. Right up on the highest branch, you say? I can't see a thing. Very funny, huh?
Goodness gracious! There is a peach! I can't believe it! A nice big one, too,
Aunt Spiker said.
A beauty, a beauty!
Aunt Sponge cried out. At this point, James slowly put down his chopper and turned and looked across at the two women who were standing underneath the peach tree. Something is about to happen, he told himself. Something peculiar is about to happen any moment. He hadn't the faintest idea what it might be, but he could feel it in his bones that something was going to happen soon. He could feel it in the air around him, in the sudden stillness that had fallen upon the garden. James tiptoed a little closer to the tree. The aunts were not talking now. They were just standing there, staring at the peach. There was not a sound anywhere, not even a breath of wind. And overhead, the sun blazed down upon them out of a deep blue sky.
It looks right to me,
said Aunt Spiker, breaking the silence.
And why don't we eat it?
Aunt Sponge suggested, licking her big, fat lips.
We can each have half. Hey, James, come over here at once and climb this tree.
James came running over.
I want you to pick that peach right up there on the highest branch,
Aunt Sponge went on.
Can you see it?
Yes, Auntie Sponge. I can see it. I'll show you the picture.
And don't you dare eat any of it. Your Auntie Spiker and I are going to have all of it right here between us now, half each. Get on up with you. Up you go.
James crossed over to the tree trunk.
Stop!
Aunt Spiker said quickly.
Hold everything!
She was staring up at the branches with her mouth wide open and her eyes bulging as though she had seen a ghost.
Look, she said. Look, Sponge, look!
What's the matter with you?
Aunt Sponge demanded.
It's growing,
Aunt Spiker cried.
It's getting bigger and bigger.
What is?
The peach, of course.
You're joking.
Well, look for yourself.
But my dear Spiker, that's perfectly ridiculous. That's impossible. That's, no, wait, just a minute. No, it can't be. No, yes.
Great Scott, that thing really is growing. It's nearly twice as big already,
Aunt Spiker shouted.
It can't be true. It is true. It must be a miracle. Watch it, watch it. I am watching it. Great heavens alive, Aunt Spiker yelled. I can actually see the thing bulging and swelling before my very eyes.
Chapter 7. The two women and the small boy stood absolutely still on the grass underneath the tree, gazing up at this extraordinary fruit. James's little face was glowing with excitement. His eyes were as big and bright as two stars. He could see the peach swelling larger and larger, as clearly as if it were a balloon being blown up. Can you imagine it? In half a minute, it was the size of a melon. In another half a minute, it was twice as big again.
Just look at it growing,
Aunt Spiker cried. Will it ever stop? Aunt Sponge shouted, waving her fat arms and starting to dance around in circles. And now it was so big, it looked like an enormous butter-colored pumpkin dangling from the top of the tree.
Get away from that tree trunk, you stupid boy,
Aunt Spiker yelled.
The slightest shake and I'm sure it'll fall off. It must weigh 20 or 30 pounds at least.
The branch that the peach was growing upon was beginning to bend over further and further because of the weight of that big peach.
Stand back,
Aunt Spiker shouted.
It's coming down. The branch is going to break.
But the branch didn't break. It simply bent over more and more as the peach got heavier and heavier. And still it went on growing. In another minute, this mammoth fruit was as large and round and fat as Aunt Sponge herself, and probably just as heavy.
It has to stop now,
Aunt Spiker yelled.
It can't go on forever.
But it didn't stop. Soon it was the size of a small car, and it reached halfway to the ground. Both aunts were now hopping around and around the tree, clapping their hands and shouting all sorts of silly things in their excitement.
Hallelujah!
Aunt Spiker shouted.
What a peach! What a peach!
Terrifico!
Aunt Sponge cried out.
Magnifico! Splendido! Splendifico! And what a meal!
Of course, she was thinking about food.
It's still growing!
I know!
As for James, he was so spellbound by the whole thing that he could only stand and stare and murmur quietly to himself, "Oh, isn't it beautiful? That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen."
Shut up, you little twerp!
Aunt Spiker snapped, happening to overhear him.
It's none of your business.
That's right,
Aunt Sponge declared.
It's got nothing to do with you whatsoever. Keep out of it.
Look,
Aunt Spiker shouted.
It's growing faster than ever now. It's speeding up.
I see it, Spiker. I do.
Bigger and bigger and bigger grew the peach. Bigger and bigger and bigger. And then at last, when it had become nearly as tall as the tree that it was growing on, as tall and wide, in fact, as a small house, the bottom part of it gently touched the ground, and there it rested. Ooh, there's a good picture of it while it's growing. You can see Aunt Sponge down here and Aunt Spiker. So you can see that it's growing, but it hasn't grown all the way to touch the ground yet.
It can't fall off now,
Aunt Sponge shouted.
It's stopped growing,
Aunt Spiker cried.
No, it hasn't.
Yes, it has.
It's slowing down, Spiker. It's slowing down, but it hasn't stopped yet. You watch it.
There was a pause.
It has now.
I do believe you're right.
Do you think it's safe to touch it?
I don't know. We better be careful.
Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker began walking slowly around the peach, inspecting it very cautiously from all sides. They were like a couple of hunters who had just shot an elephant and were not quite sure whether it was dead or alive. And the massive round fruit towered over them so high that they looked like little midgets from another world beside it. The skin of the peach was very, very beautiful. It was a rich, buttery yellow with patches of brilliant pink and red. Aunt Sponge advanced cautiously and touched it with the tip of one finger.
It's ripe,
she cried.
It's just perfect. Now see here, Spiker, why don't we go and get us a shovel right away and dig out a big hunk for you and for me to eat?
No, said Spiker, not yet.
Why ever not?
Because I say so. But I can't wait to eat some,
Aunt Sponge cried out. She was watering at the mouth now, and a thin trickle of spit was dripping down one side onto her chin. Gross. She's a piggy.
My dear Sponge,
Aunt Spiker said slowly, winking at her sister and smiling with a sly, thin-lipped smile.
there's a pile of money to be made out of this. If only we can handle it right. You wait and see.
All right, we're stopping there for today. That was the end of chapter 7. So I'll see you again tomorrow. We'll start up with chapter 8. Bye.